The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the madhouse that is the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm joined tonight by Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, so am I. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm very excited too.
It's going to be absolutely awesome. And if anyone out there is listening and they want to go to the Paranormal Convention, there's one at Cressing Temple and it's run by Paraforce UK. So get online and look them up and get your tickets and come and find me and I'll sign a few autographs and things. And I'm sure Kerry can do the same.
Just sign a few autographs. I love it.
That's it. Yeah. So, talking of paracons and paraconventions and things like that, we're also joined by Ashley Knibb. Hello, Ashley.
Hiya.
Hiya, how you doing?
Not too bad, thanks.
Good. Kerry reliably informed me that you've recently come back from a paraconvention.
Yes, I've just, well, not the whole convention, but I sort of visited the convention on the Friday night, the Sage Paracon up in Warwick Castle.
Awesome. I've booked Warwick Castle for a couple of events next year, and I'm looking forward to going there.
It is an awesome location.
I've not actually been, so yeah, that's going to be absolutely fantastic. I also booked Shepton Mallet Prison. I'm looking forward to going there as well.
Yeah, see, Ashley messaged me about that and said, "Oh, you know, Shepton Mallet Prison does." I was like, "Yeah, I'm going." He was like, "What?"
As soon as I see the ad out on social media, put there by, I think it was the Mirror newspaper, in regards to another big paranormal group, and people are sharing it like the plague, and all my friends that are sharing it, I'm like, oh yeah, we've got that, you know. Oh, it's so bloody
it's
done.
going to be good. Yeah, these are great locations. These are great locations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ashley, tell us more about your investigation at Warwick Castle.
To be honest, it's quite prolific. It's like a veritable who's who of an investigation at an awesome location as well. I literally rocked up and went into Warwick Castle and went through the usual bits and pieces. But throughout the night, I investigated with Greg Lawson, John Zaffis, Jeff Bellinger, Brian Cano, Robert Murch, my cousin Claire Hinks as well, as MJ, and a plethora of people from the paranormal field, quite frankly.
Awesome. Did John Zaffis actually take anything home with him that, you know, claimed to be haunted? And...
Hopefully not, because I'm pretty sure it's not allowed. But no, it's what I found, and obviously it's in my blog as well, is what was fantastic was the fact that there's obviously various different locations around the castle that we investigated, but every person that we investigated obviously was a guest speaker for the weekend that I unfortunately couldn't stay for, which I'm gutted about. But anyway, I'll leave that alone. Every guest speaker that we investigated with approached it in a slightly different way. So yeah. Each vigil, if you like, was something completely different. So it was quite a cool investigation, sort of like, and which I don't think I've experienced anything like that. Well, since last time, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you went last year to the whole event, didn't you?
I was, yeah, but last year I was also a guest speaker, so I was actually in one of the locations. But this time I was actually one of the people moving between different locations and taking it in from all the different other guest speakers as well.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
So where did you go first? I mean, we know it's at Warwick Castle. So where did you go first in the investigation?
First up, we obviously, after all gathering down in what they call the Undercroft restaurant, we all got divided into our teams. And then my first vigil, if you like, was with Brian J. Cano from Haunted Collector.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the what they call the Kingmaker area of the castle, which has got it's got a lot of mannequins in that area and all that kind of stuff. So a group of us went into there, and we kind of had a little bit of a mooch around first to find out where we see what was kind of like, what we felt was good, and then we ended up in a particular area which was the stonemason's den, and then Brian done a few bits and pieces with this den. So he basically we done an EVP session to start off with. That's like a group EVP session, so we all asked a question each, all that kind of stuff, and then live reviewed the EVP as well to see if we captured anything.
I was going to say, what method did you use? You burst method, I take it.
Yes, basically just start a recorder, and then each of us ask a question, and then the next person, and then leaving a gap in between, sort of thing. So, and Brian kind of directs us. And after that, he plugged into a speaker, and then we just listened back to it, and then checked it for bits and pieces that sound a bit odd.
And did you get anything?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
What did you get? What did you get?
Well, it's always a weird one for me. I mean, but between two of the people, there's like what sounds like numbers, and the most prominent one of those numbers is a 2, but it sounds like it either goes 4, 4, 3, 2, or 3, 2 something. But there's a sequence of numbers, but the one that's most prominent is the number 2, and you can kind of quite hear 2 sort of come through quite well. So that was quite an interesting cat. I don't know whether it had any relationship to the question that was asked, because you forget what the question is after you kind of like pick up on this thing. But so that was quite interesting.
Mm.
We also after that we tried some pendulum work as well in the most weirdest way you've ever thought. And this has nothing to do with the new iPhone release or anything like that. But Brian decided to use some Apple earbuds as a pendulum because he didn't have his pendulum with him.
Oh, okay.
I was like, okay,
odd. Yeah.
But he set it up, and he asked a question, and it set up, gave him a yes and a no kind of answer, sort of like an anti-clockwise kind of spin. I think it was for yes, and a backwards and forwards for no. And then we started asking questions and stuff like that, and it did seem to be reacting and stuff like that, and that was relatively interesting and stuff like that. I mean, I'm always on the fence when it comes to things like that. And to be fair, so is Brian. Yeah, that was quite interesting. But the communication we got seemed to reside not so much with a spirit that was around us, but it seemed to say that it was with John Zaffis in another part of the building, which is kind of weird.
So you haven't got a pendulum that you use at all, have you, normally?
No, I haven't, no.
You are going to have on Friday.
Yes, that's what I was going to say that.
She's going to bring a big supply of them, so
You'll choose one and you will buy one. No, I'm only joking. No, because this is something that you don't particularly buy into, the pendulum thing, do you?
I wouldn't say I don't buy into it. It's just, it's not something that I've got involved with heavily, or think it's kind of like my box of frogs, or whatever you want to call it. And because I get deterred by the fact that it's one of those things that it's a divination tool that we have to have contact with in order for it to work. I mean, it's a difficult one because it's one that can be easily faked as much as it can be quite realistic and quite on point. I think. I mean, I've done things with people with pendulums, and I've trusted them, so I know that they're not messing around and stuff like that. But equally, I've been at locations during events where I can 100% tell that someone is completely faking it, and it kind of puts you off a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's one of those divination tools where you think, oh, and then but at the same time, I think, oh, no. On this particular occasion, I don't think there was anything untoward going on. I trust Brian and that kind of stuff. So I think what was getting answers. I mean, they're quite vague and stuff like that, as they usually are in these scenarios. But it was interesting, to say the least. And it's always quite interesting to see Brian using something like that as well, because in most of my times that I've investigated with Brian, it's been mostly kind of tech approach, if you like.
Mm.
So yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah, because you have actually investigated with Brian quite in other locations. You did Fort Halstead, if I remember rightly.
Yes, done Fort Horsted and Fort Woodley with Brian. We've done the D-Day tour with Sage.
Yeah. So, you kind of know his methods quite a lot.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Then the next part of that little vigil, we finished it off with one of the classic ones that Brian does, which is what's they call the psychic projection experiment, which is one of the ones I've also picked up on as well, because it's a fantastic little quick experiment. It takes only a minute. So basically, you get a digital voice recorder, stick it down, switch it on, record for a minute, and in that minute, you think, before that minute, you think of a word as a group, and then you all just focus your intent onto that device, and focus that word onto that device to record it. Now, when we first ever done this with Brian, it worked straight off the bat, which was fantastic. Mm-hmm. We tried it twice at Warwick, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. It didn't. No, but he did say that he had recently gone to Australia, and in one investigation, it happened twice there. So it does happen, but it then happens less as well, sometimes more often, if that makes sense.
It's a bit hit and miss.
It is a bit hit and miss, but then it's getting the the equation right, to get the right sort of bits and pieces in place to make it work, I suppose, and that's the bit we're trying to figure out.
Do you think, we was talking to Mark Richardson on Sunday, and he was talking about synchronicity within the energy within a team. Do you think that could be a key factor there?
I think that's a key factor in any investigation, or even any experience that people have paranormally. I think that understanding between each other, or if that synchronicity, that can depend whether one person sees something or two people can see the same thing. So I think that's a definite factor, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, have you tried voice recording? I was talking to Ghost Searchers Island, I believe it were, and they were talking about using the old style recorders with like a cassette.
Oh yeah, so you're changing the media types. Obviously, with digital voice recorders, you're recording onto a chip and stuff like that. But with the older, you look at using magnetic media, so you're using tape, basically magnetic tapes and all that kind of stuff. And I've even heard some people who said that if you go right back to like reel-to-reel systems, you get even better quality or even more hits with EVP and stuff like that. So I'm not an expert in EVP, but it's worth a try. Everything's worth a try, I think. And if it works, it works.
Yeah, we was actually supposed to be talking about EVPs tonight. Let's just put it out there, because that was what was advertised. Except Carl Hutchinson has been kidnapped by the Sage tribe. And he's still with them at the moment. And so we've kind of like grabbed poor old Ashley in to talk about the investigation he had at Sage. So I'm questioning him on EVPs when poor Ashley doesn't really. Just throwing things out there for him to try and answer for me. Paul?
Yep. Oh, you want me to join in now? Yeah, okay. I was going to say, actually, with the EVPs in particular, I was wondering whether or not EMF would have some sort of effect on a tape recorder as opposed to the reel-to-reel or the digital one, because that's the sound sort of gets imprinted on the tape by a magnetic field, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering whether or not that would have an effect. The EMF field.
It could do. To be fair, I don't know. I don't know how. I'm looking at it into this kind of scenario, because this psychic projection sort of thing feeds into ideas of my own, where I think sometimes when we pick up EVPs and stuff like that, it might not be the voices of spirits we pick up, but it might be psychic projections that a group have inadvertently projected onto the devices whilst investigating and looking for the same thing. So it could either be spirits, or it could be our own psychic projections that are occurring, which are what EVPs could be. So, and that could manifest, and the psychic energy that's used in either of those transmissions, I say, could have an electromagnetic field. I'm surmising here. I don't.
Well, that's it. It's just something like food for thought, really, and something that could be looked into at a later date, possibly. But yeah, that was sort of the thing that was going through my mind at the time.
It's certainly something that could be measured in conjunction with capturing EVPs. To be fair.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, when you done your investigation of Warwick Castle, did you use your book?
I was going to ask that.
I did use my book, and what an excellent tool it is too.
Excellent.
No, I did. I was stood there all through this, scribbling away my little book, little vents and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it did quite work out quite well, actually, to be fair, if I do say so much.
Good. So when we do Reigate House, we're both me and Kerry are going to bring your book along, and we're going to use the book.
We all are. I think everybody on the team has got one.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's how we're going to do it. Hopefully build more and more data through that. That'd be really good.
Well, if Graham's got anything to do with it, we'll end up with like a super duper platinum version of the Paranormal Investigators Journal. We'll be writing down all sorts of data that he's collecting on the environmental front, knowing our lovely Graham. I sent him a diagram the other day, and he took my diagram, which was really bad. It was a real just quick, like, chuck it on a bit of paper type jobby, because he kept saying, I need the floor plan. I was like, oh, for God's sakes, just wrote it out. Yeah. Sent it to him. And then he came back and he's done it like an architect's drawing.
Okay.
Bless him. And I'm like, it's not exact measurements, you know. I can't remember that much. He's like, that's okay. I can change it. Oh, bless him. That's it. I love him so much. He's such a cutie.
Did you just give him the floor plan of the gatehouse or the rest of the house as well? No, just the gatehouse. Okay. He's got, because that's not proven yet, the rest of it. No, they've got geophys, haven't they, for the rest of it? Ah, but until we see that, we don't know for sure, do we? No. That's pretty much what I was asking, just without being direct, I suppose. Yeah, no, literally just the actual physical location that we've got there. Okay. Anyway, we're coming off topic and we're talking about Warwick and Ashley's investigation. So that was what you did with Brian. Did you do more with Brian? That actually brought us to the end of that vigil, and then we headed back to the Undercroft for a quick break, and then it was off to our next location within the castle and our next guest speaker as well. And that was the wonderful John Zaffis from Haunted Collector as well, or the Haunted Collector, shall I say. And for those of you who don't know, he's the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm sure everyone knows about them from recent films and stuff like that as well. Huh? He's also the guy that helped investigate the haunting in Connecticut as well. So he's prolific. I think he's got something like, and I don't want to be over pushing it, I'm pretty sure it's like something like 40 odd years in investigation. Yeah, so, he has. He's got a lot of years, hasn't he? And he looks good for it. But yeah, he's haggard then. not at all. And he's a great guy. I mean, we set up our little group with him. We set up in the music room in the main part of in Warwick Castle, and for his video, obviously, like I said, we're doing different things. We started off using it was like an ITC app, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure because I didn't get a look at it, but I'm pretty sure it's like EchoVox or something. Oh yeah, EchoVox. We know EchoVox. I might be wrong in the actual title, which is, so I'm sorry if I am, but it was an ITC app like that was pumping out lots of words and bits and pieces like that. Now, what caught me about this is I've used ITC apps before. I've seen other people use them before, and in classic paranormal way, and I'll probably put my hands up as well. I've probably been a bit clinical with it. John Zaffis had a complete communication. Like he just talked to it as if it was another person in the room. It was brilliant. That was cool. And obviously the name Ed came up a few times, which then he kind of deferred and asked for someone else to come through. And we did have lots of other bits and pieces come through, and the group asked questions as well. We went around the whole group asking questions and stuff like that. And actually Claire, my cousin Claire Hinks, medium Claire Hinks, her husband was there as well, Richard, and he was in the same group as me. And he is decidedly a skeptic to start off with, and he picked up on a name Robert, which actually was a name that John said the previous group picked up as well, which was quite took him by surprise a little bit. And then that Robert actually became the focus then for the rest of that because it was picked up bits of information that seemed to be related to him. Okay. Claire is actually in the chat room, Ashley. Is she? Yeah, she's actually in the chat room. So hi, Claire. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I need to catch up with you and find out how you got on, girl, because I'm really excited to hear about how you got on. So that's quite interesting then. And it's coming through an ITC, which I'm quite sceptical of apps, in all honesty. I
I was as well. I mean, I work in the IT industry as well, so I know that you can stick an algorithm together and a bit of clever programming, and it can seem like it's doing exactly what you think it's doing, and having conversations with spirits and stuff like that. And I'm still very dubious of especially apps on mobile devices and stuff and things like that. But at the same time, you still have to put that mindset into play where you've got to give everything a try and see how it works and things like that, and see what comes of it.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. It's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because it's like, well, I've got to trust it, and I'm not sure if I do. And
yeah, it is definitely one of those. Because Paul, you don't trust apps at all, do you?
No, definitely not. I just think that they're too easily programmable, especially with the words that it throws out.
100% agree.
I mean, like the obvious, like there's so many, like 2,000 words programmed into it, all associated with the paranormal. And when you go to a haunted location, it throws out random words. You can link 99% of them to the location anyway. And I just think it's not that good for that reason.
Because it becomes a kind of verbalised pareidolia, doesn't it? I mean, you'll ask a question, you get a random word, and you go, I can fit that into that question quite easily.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, I get that. I think you have to kind of play with what you get and take it with a pinch of salt sometimes, and see look at the bigger picture rather than just going, oh yeah, that's bang on, anything like that. I mean, I'm not 100% prescribed, but I don't like to discount things because I'm not an expert, so I couldn't possibly do that.
Well, that's it. I mean, because I sort of dabble on both sides of the fence with the paranormal investigations, because I run a company that does the ghost hunting side of it for the public, and they come in and they want to play with all those gadgets and stuff that they see on the telly. Now, it's all aimed at communicating with spirit. So to get in an Ovilus, if they're going to believe that it's going to work, it's sort of made their evening. I can only sit there so many times and say, well, actually, it's programmed with 2,000 words, all associated with the paranormal. It's down to you whether you trust it or not. But then when I go out on a private investigation, I wouldn't use that equipment. I'm more of a scientific, what caused that, than actually looking for communication. It's not the communication I'm interested in. I'm interested in what is creating the paranormal activity that is reported.
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got sort of best of both worlds, really.
So is there any app that has like the entire English dictionary in it that we know?
The dictionary.com app.
Apart from dictionary.com app. Is there such a thing? No, I meant like in the fit, like,
what about the thesaurus.com app?
No, you know what I mean. God. Because then you're not got a database of just like 2,000 words that are linked to the paranormal. You've got like the Oxford English Dictionary, millions of words, haven't you? So then if you did get things that were more relevant to the location, it would make it more credible?
Yeah, I think it would, but I don't know if there's anything out there like that.
Or would that create a too big a database for like a mobile phone app or an iPad app?
Oddly, in this particular thing, talking about things that are related to the location, things like that. One of the things that Brian taught us when we went on a D-Day tour, because he used some IT apps then, wasn't so much getting something that was related to the location, but creating like a password or a word that's totally unrelated to anything, and then trying to get the device to say that as part of the communication in order to kick off the communication, so that you maybe to give an understanding that you could be talking to something intelligent. So you could use the password purple, for example, and then if you could get them, if they are interacting with said ITC app or whatever it is, then if they get that to come through, then you might be dealing with something intelligent, and it might be utilising the system, and it might be doing something. So, but especially something like if you pick a word that's highly unlikely to appear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, but that would only work if you've got an intelligent spirit that's there. If you're working on residual and you're working on your theory that it's something that you can connect to with your mind and then manifest that.
Right, yeah.
That wouldn't work.
Yeah, I wouldn't think if something residual would be able to interact with it. Well, in my my mindset, things that interact with things and do things with things and then communicate through things would be an intelligence. Residual would be things that you pick up and see and walk past you and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't think that a residual haunting would interact with devices and things like that in that manner.
See, I also one of the experiments that we use mainly for the public, and it's quite an interesting thing to do. I get people to stand in a circle just for a laugh, and then basically ask them to sort of go into a meditative state, and then I'll ask a question, and they say the first thing that comes into their mind. So it's almost like using them as an ovulus. And you'll get a couple of them occasionally come out with the same word. That's another interesting experiment to try.
Well,
yeah. I've used that.
I've not
a few
heard
times.
of that one. Not heard of that one before.
Yeah, I've used it a few times, and it is almost like treating them as an ovulus or something of the same equivalent. But obviously, in their mind, they've got that wide vocabulary. But when 3 or 4 of them come out with the same word, then it's like, okay, then, well, let's go with this. Let's write, and you can piece together a whole story using their answers. And I think that's quite an interesting thing. I want to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it sounds quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ashley?
When you say they come out with the same word, are you talking about different groups coming up with the same words at different times?
Well, I had a group of, I think it was about 8 people, and one of the first questions I asked was, is there a male or female energy? 3 of them said female. I then asked, I said, okay, if you are the female energy that's here, can you tell me what your name is? And the same 3 people come out with the name Martha. Now, these people didn't actually come together, so they were from different groups of people that came into the event, so I wouldn't have thought that they'd have that much to talk about to try and rig this experiment, because it wasn't until I was outside that I decided to do it. So I didn't give them any time to prepare. I just said, right, I want to try something new. This is what I'm going to do. And talk them through it. So for 3 of them to say, oh yeah, there's a female energy here, and 3 of them came out with the same name. And it was mainly those 3 that I was working with. And there was other random names that were thrown out there, but because it was more than one person saying Martha, and it's not an everyday name either. Do you know what I mean? And it was quite interesting that they would come out with the same name.
Yep. No.
I want to do that experiment more often, and
try it a bit more, see what happens.
What you need is perhaps it's difficult, because if you want to ask a question, then if you can visualize, if you can get them to if you can create a way of visualizing the questions, either like writing them down on a piece of paper or something.
Yeah.
And then giving them like noise cancelling earphones so they can't hear each other. Then they'll gain better credit, because obviously they can't hear each other what they're saying then. And
it's almost like cross-purpose that with the Gansfield, almost a little bit.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I was thinking on my feet.
We'll have to try and...
it's almost like a brainstorming session now, isn't it?
well, that's what it... Yeah, but then that's what experiment's all about. I mean, I tried that, so now we've got to try and hone that experiment into something that can be concrete evidence.
Yeah, you need to define, focus it down so that you can't have any contagion from each other. So they can't be leaving each other, and then all of a sudden, then you've got something a little bit more tangible. Yeah, because obviously you've got information that's being transmitted by 3 different people, and none of them know what none of the other people are saying it.
Yeah.
An easy way is just to get them to write the answers down rather than just saying them out loud.
Yeah, that's another possibility.
So you can't see what the other person's written.
Yeah, or we could do that. That's possible. But after doing that experiment, the spirit that was there, we wanted to move on. So afterwards, after the investigation and everything, I said to one of our medium members of staff, there's something out there that I want you to move on. I'm not going to give you any more information than that. Just go out there, see what you get. And she came back with the same stuff that we did. which was quite impressive as
pretty
well.
good.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not normally into the whole mediumship stuff, but that actually sort of impressed me a little bit.
It does depend on the medium.
It does. Yeah,
It does.
Cool.
So what? Yes.
Okay, Ashley, what did you do next? You're with John Zappis.
So John's. So we finished off that vigil by doing some classic rap and tapping, knocking type stuff.
Rap and tap.
Classic rap and tap, which sometimes I'm a bit dubious. But to be fair, we didn't get, wasn't a prolific amount of knocking, but there was a little bit of knocking, a little bit of tapping as well. So some of the questions that we got within that music room. So it was that was quite a little bit interesting. But obviously, then the problem with these things is as fast as a vigil starts, it finishes.
Yeah.
And then we was back off down into our base room, grab a cup of coffee before we're off to the next one. Which I've got to try and remember which order it went in now because, and if I get the order wrong, I think next up was possibly Greg Lawson in the Bear Tower.
Ooh, the Bear Tower.
I don't know. Basically, this is one room that you go into. It's a wooden floor that you walk into this little room, and it tells you all about the bear baiting they used to do, which is a horrible thing back in the day in medieval times. Obviously, back then they thought it was perfectly fine, but they used to tie up or chain up bears, shall I say, and then they used to attack them with dogs and stuff like that. Horrible thing, really mean. So basically, you're stood in this little room above basically this pit that the bears were kept in. But what I found interesting about this is what Greg done was he approached it from a kind of got us to think about what we was looking at, think about the information that was available to us, what we'd already been told about the place. I mean, there was nothing said about whether it was haunted, whether there's anything there or anything like that. And literally, it was just we looked at like 3 plaques that gave very basic information about what the situation was, and then we looked at the environment that we're in, and he kind of encouraged us by telling us some bits and pieces to look at it a bit more detail and kind of connect the dots, if you like. And I found myself questioning if what I was looking at, as in the room, the way it was set out then, was anything like what it was originally. And then we was right down to the point where we had a torch shone down this little grate in to see how big this pit was to make sure it was big enough to house bears and all that kind of stuff. So really looking at the information. So we might not have been looking for ghosts and stuff like that, but it was kind of that investigational kind of, connecting the dots. Now, if you don't know Greg Lawson, he used to be a detective, homicide detective, and that kind of stuff, and he writes stuff like Paranormal Detective. So he looks at things from a research kind of taking the instance where people have had an experience and things like that, but then taking it right back to what he calls the alpha case, which is the first instance of when an experience was said to have happened, and then see how that explodes from there to become the haunting or the ghost interaction that we see today, sort of thing. So he gets you to really he definitely got me to really, really think about where I was stood, what I was looking at, and all that kind of stuff, which I really love, to be honest with you, because I like the research side as well. So
really took you onto the environment and look at the environment and almost like you say, look at it almost like a case study. Would that pit have been big enough to house a bear?
Yeah, exactly that.
Basic things like that you kind of get overlooked.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, looking at it, sort of thinking, would this fit? I mean, in other locations, obviously, you'd look at different things, but in this particular case, it was analysing it to see what it was, where we understood if we understood what we was looking at, the environment we stood in, and all that kind of stuff, which is quite interesting, to be fair. And that again, that visual finished quicker than it should have done, as they always do. And then after that, I think I went back and that's when I bumped into to Cole Hutchinson then.
Yeah.
And he showed me a picture that he took on his phone of this dancing blue light.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Where did I see that? Oh, on your blog. You've actually got that on your blog, haven't you?
Yeah. And then we proceeded to debunk it. I mean, this is funny. The funny thing is this has come up recently a couple of times. Someone sent me a couple of pictures saying that they saw it in a wood and all this kind of stuff, and trying to figure out what it was. And I first of all, when I saw it, thought it was an error with the phone. The Apple iPhone.
Yeah.
I said between me and Carl, we kind of debunked it, sort of thing, and recreated it as well to prove it, which just proves that sometimes you shouldn't just take things as they come. You need to go and double check them and think about it a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And that was just in the coffee break. Actually.
That's why you have coffee breaks to debunk all the activity that you had.
What was it after that? Next up after that was the chapel with Jeff Blunger, who does the historical bits and pieces for Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 15 minutes of Ghost Adventures, when they tell you all about the location and all that kind of stuff and the history and all that kind of stuff, he does all the research to get going in that kind of bit before the commercial break, so to speak. He's also a prolific writer of paranormal bits and pieces with lots and lots of different books and all that kind of stuff out there as well. And a fascinating guy to talk to, and full of energy as well. Although that could have been the candy corn that he was giving out that night. Anyway,
hasn't he read Barry Fitzgerald books on influence that you shouldn't eat those or drink those kind of things before an investigation?
But anyway, yeah, so it was in the chapel. The chapel was quite a small area, to be fair, and you couldn't get into most of it because obviously being quite a historic place, some things are kind of locked off a little bit. So it's all kind of stood as a group in this little area, talking about historic things, bits and pieces around the chapel, the fact that it's believed not to be consecrated and all this kind of stuff, and just having a general look around and bits and pieces and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, a guy called Wayne, who I can't pronounce his own name, but he had a FLIR sort of device on a tablet.
Mm.
So he was looking around. He's kind of swooped around the room, and he kind of found a hot spot on the floor. And the weird thing was that this hotspot that measured about 22, 24 degrees just stayed there and didn't dissipate at all. And we even got someone to sit next to it, leave a hotspot where they were sat, and then that would dissipate, but then this other hotspot would kind of stay there. So you had this heat patch on the floor, on the cold floor, by the way, because it's like a tile floor with stone underneath it. And it was just staying there. And it wouldn't dissipate for the entire rest of the vigil. And we tried all kinds of things to try and make it disappear. We would push our hands on the wall near to it to see if they would stay there as well, but they'd dissipate. And it's like, but this little hotspot stayed there. In fact, at one point we had the whole group gathered around it to make sure that no light was getting into it, to see whether it was light get into it or anything like that. And that was quite interesting as well, because it was just like this weird hotspot that showed up on the floor, and just didn't dissipate for the whole of the vigil. Now, the annoying thing was that we couldn't tell you whether it was there before we got there or not, because obviously we switched on the device, scanned around, and there it was. And no one else had seen it. I mean, the only thing that happened in there previous to that was the alarm, the motion sensor alarms at the actual altar of the chapel had been set off by something, even though there was nothing walking backwards and forwards where those sensors were. So that was a little bit odd. But other than that, there was no reason why there should be this patch on the floor, and it kind of left us a little bit bemused and unexplained, so to speak, for that. I mean, the only thing since that I can think of is that it was a shiny patch on the floor and the floor was bouncing off of it. But then I can't prove that without getting back in there and trying testing it again.
Yeah, retesting it.
Dodgy electrics under the tile.
I'd be interested to know dodgy electrics underneath there. Medieval. Again, it was interesting because at the same time as you're kind of investigating with people like Jeff, you're also talking to them and they're like investigating alongside you as well, and it was quite interesting to have that sort of situation. So yeah, and then
that's what's interesting actually is when you investigate with somebody who's investigated a lot, you forget because of the job that you see them do in their day-to-day life, like the TV program side of it.
Yeah.
You forget how much experience they also have.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't just do the TV show and that's it. They work in the paranormal 24/7 almost, aren't they? And the experience they've got is their backstory of their experience is more interesting than what the job they do, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these people have, like so Jeff and Brian and that have been all over the world with it and investigated all different places and like Jeff being a writer and all that kind of stuff, he's researched places completely. I mean, he doesn't just do like ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. He's done things like Bigfoot and all that kind of all those kind of backstories and all those kind of stuff. So he gets right in amongst it as well and tries to understand what's going on and he has a like all of them, they've got a wonderful energy, so to speak. I don't mean like a spiritual energy. I mean like an energy like to get in there and get on with it sort of thing. And it's really, really interesting to kind of work alongside people like that.
It's almost like they've got a passion for it.
Exactly, it's a passion for it. They live, eat, and breathe it. I think, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to going to the convention this weekend at the Crescent Temple, Barnes, and working with some of the guest speakers there. That's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah. Kerry.
So what else did you do, Ashley? You went from there, had that experience, and then went on to, was it?
Our last location of the night was the Kenilworth bedroom, which is renowned for being associated with Aleister Crowley.
Yeah,
is the room that he held seances in back in the day. It's also related to being the possible location of a resurrection as well before that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I haven't done research, but apparently that's the case. It's certainly an interesting room. It's a wood panelled room as well, which is quite nice and stuff. And in that particular room, the two guest speakers, or the three guest speakers that actually ended up in there was Robert Murch, who is basically he's the Ouija board guy. He knows everything there is to know about them. He collects them from all different places. He's been sort of like the guy they've gone to about films like Ouija and stuff like that, and gives all the advice and that kind of stuff. And also in there you had my cousin working the board as well, and also another paranormal writer called Nikki Folsom. So we literally went in there, and on the floor was one of these Ouija boards, and we sat down and cracked on. So
and did you get any activity on the board?
We did. The board we was using as well was one that had previously featured in Ghost Adventures as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's like famous board. So yeah, we use that board, and we got some bits and pieces. Well, we actually got quite a few bits and pieces. Some of them related to individuals. Some of them related to possibly Aleister Crowley. I mean, they'd already got bits and pieces to do with Aleister Crowley previous before I arrived there as well. And other bits and pieces possibly related to this resurrection and stuff like that. And whilst I was there working the board with my cousin Nikki Folsom, and at times Robert Murch as well, and some others as well, we got bits and pieces come through, names, dates, different numbers of people, spirits in the room, that kind of stuff. It was quite interesting as well, and it's one of those things that, from my perspective, I'm always very dubious about it, but at the same time, it's always an interesting one. I find.
So have you had a chance to look into the names and dates that you've got to see if they actually existed?
I haven't yet, and to be honest with you, the information that came through was too loose to check up on. There wasn't enough information, like that's first name, surname. There wasn't that, and there wasn't prolific dates to go and research. There wasn't enough to do a search on, so to speak. But still, interesting stuff coming through, and it makes for a good little session. Sorry, and one of the ones that came through, which kind of always puts myself into question, is whether it was either like a telepathic interaction or whether it was actually a spirit come through. Is one of the ones that came through towards the end of the evening was actually whilst me and my cousin and Nikki Folsom were on the board. It was my grandfather.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of spelled out the initials of my grandfather right there in front of us on the board, sort of thing. But before it did that, me and my cousin Claire, we kind of knew from what kind of some of the things it already said that who it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then that could be because both of us have our subconscious, if you like, could have been driving that because it's a linked experience, so to speak. That particular person, but that's me being my science versus spiritual.
Yeah, you do like to think about that side of it, don't you? You don't just like take it as.
No, I've been brought up not to. I have to question and find out. My cousin, if she's still in the chat room, is probably sitting there going, "You know who it was?"
She says she's listening with Rich.
Oh, hi, Rich.
Is what she said. Now, Richard has actually put a comment in there. He said most investigations seem to be heavily centred around trying to communicate with alleged spirits as a prerequisite of paranormal investigation. Now, being as we don't know whether this phenomenon is actually connected with spirits of the dead, don't you feel this approach is very narrow?
Yes.
Quite simply, he does. He thinks that, yes.
Yeah, no, I do agree. It is quite narrow. But I think when it comes to event side of things, that's what people want to go for. They want to experience the paranormal activity. So whether it is really attachment to ghosts or whether it isn't, it doesn't matter what's causing it. They will just jump to that conclusion anyway. But as an investigator, you're looking at the causes of the activity, not actually looking for ghosts. So you're not into the communication side of it. It's what's causing the activity that's the issue. That's why I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's very... Sorry, go on, Kerry.
I was just saying that's a common theme, though, between the two sides of paranormal.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the people that just want to go and, like, check out a ghost and see a ghost and experience activity. And then you've got the other side who want to find out why, the whys.
And that's the difference between a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
And it really does bug the hell out of me when they go, oh yeah, I'm a paranormal investigator, but they go ghost hunting.
but we all do both, though. But we all do both, don't we?
Not all of them. Not everyone. I mean, there are teams out there that go, oh, yeah, we're so-and-so paranormal investigations. And then they go and do the ghost hunting. And it's like, really? You don't know what you're doing?
Hmm.
Yeah, but there's not... None of us have got a CV, if you like, that says what we do, and we're not professional. And we may portray a professional image, but we're not professional as in it's our day job and we do it 24/7 and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the likes of Brian Canno and Jeff and all that kind of stuff who do this thing as their day job, I would say these guys are professionals because they know it inside out. They do it inside out. And yes, I 100% agree. There's a variation between an event, an actual investigation. An event, a team ghost hunt investigation, depending on what you want to call it, of a public location.
Yeah.
An investigation of a case, completely different thing. Mm-hmm. And experimenting with psychical research and all that kind of stuff, where you're looking into things and trying to find that source and that why does that do that and how does that work like that and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm the first to put my hand up, and I love a good ghost hunt. I like going out there and trying to experience things and stuff like that, and not worrying too much about gathering the data sometimes. But then sometimes I want to go out there and just I want to experiment and find out what's going on.
That's why when we do staff events as well as the ghost hunting event for the public, and for the public events I don't collect any data whatsoever. We do the recordings and stuff, and it's always interesting listening back, but you can always discount most of it because you can't account for everybody. But then when we go and do our own staff events, we can control it a little bit more better. And okay, we might just do the one-off in certain locations, but then we get private investigations come in as well all the time, and we can go and do those properly. We can go and do them at different times, and so it's not just a one-off. It's a proper paranormal investigation, like what we plan to do at Reigate House. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on the situation, really. I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I have to say, coming up against a case study, looking into the history of stuff and the geology of stuff and stuff like that I've sort of gone down that route a little bit at the moment. I'm finding that side of it more fascinating than actually getting into the location at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is you're getting bitten by the data bug now.
Oh my God, I've been infected by the data bug by Ashley and Graham.
But this is the interesting thing, though. You start looking at things like that, and you can literally do it without even going to locations sometimes. And you're reading things and you're picking stuff up, and you're talking to people and getting all this anecdotal evidence or witness statements and all that kind of stuff. And because you're in a different position, because you're not running in there and investigating it straight away, you begin to see patterns and scenarios where you've got similarities and things and all that kind of stuff. And you actually see it from a completely different angle as well, which is I always find really fascinating. So I love the research as well, because you get in there, you find out about the history of a location, you find out about where that all ties together. And going back to like what Greg Lawson was talking about when on this event as well, looking at those bits and pieces that tie with dots, like finding that alpha case where the activity was proposed to have started originally, and then maybe seen, oh, actually, if you look at that first alpha case of when someone said they experienced something, this and this and this had happened, and that's probably why they thought they'd seen this and that, and you might even debunk it off the back of that, or you might even think, actually, this is actually more evidence towards the paranormal than cases now when people are saying they see things, because they're just repeating what the original alpha case was, so to speak. And that's why I find it really, really fascinating and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was sat, my kids went to a club at the weekend and I went to the pub, as you do. And I actually took some books with me because I knew I was going to be sat there for a while on my own. And so I'm sitting there and I must have looked like the biggest geek in the world because I've got all these books laid out on this table with my A4 pad. Writing notes down, looking it up. Then I'm on my phone looking at something on Google that I'd found out about or something like that. It was absolutely fascinating. And I was there for 3 hours doing that.
Yeah, it's easily done.
And the woman came over to me several times going, is everything okay? Yeah, absolutely fine. It's almost like I was in my own personal little library in this pub. I'd got the right chair and everything. I looked like such a geek. I love it. Have to say, I love it.
So in the chat room, Richard has just put, usually a location visit would probably be the last phase of an investigation. Just so you need to get the basic layout. To a point, I agree with that, but I would say that if it's a new location that's just come up, I'd like to get in there first, so I can experience some of the paranormal activity that's been reported, if any.
Yeah.
And then I would then start my investigation into what caused that activity, and I'd have a layout firsthand. So I think it depends on the situation, and it depends on how it's put forward to you. I think whether or not you'd want to visit the location first or last. I think, you don't want to get too much of the history of the property until last. Or, you want to get into the property first, get the atmosphere, so to speak, and then research it.
I disagree, because I do things differently.
Okay.
I prefer to research it and look into the location, understand what I'm getting into, and as Kerry probably knows by now, I'm a prolific planner as well. So by the time I'm ready to investigate, I've done all this background research and I know what I'm going to do. I've looked at previous activity that's been picked up there and all that kind of stuff. So I'll know where I want to try things and where I want to focus attention and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of research before I jump into a location. And if it's not so much private, but if it's a private case, so to speak, I often won't even engage in anything to do with it without getting the person to keep a diary first.
Yeah.
Because in that way you can actually ruled out like 99% of the time. Most people don't keep the diary and they disappear quite quickly. You don't get anything else come back of it. The people that have actual activity will then make the effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
See, I've always preferred to go to a location blind, so that if anything does come up, I don't know whether or not I can. I'm not leading myself because I know the information, if that makes sense. So I would rather go and experience the activity first and then look for the explanation.
I think it does depend on the case. I think it does depend on the situation. I mean, if you want things like basic layouts and stuff like that and you haven't got that information available and you can't get it, then, the only way to do that is to get into the location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes
you know what I mean?
You can get plans and stuff from the councils anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend. It really does depend on the situation. I'm finding with a couple of things that I'm looking into at the moment that it's all research. I've got no desire to go and visit the location at this point.
Yeah.
Nope.
Locations, should I say, at this point. I know I'm going to. That's not in question. That will definitely happen at some point, but it's not ready to be done yet.
Yeah.
No.
And that's how I feel about just the cases that I'm doing at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think, again, personal preference, I think that comes into it. How you work comes into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I work with you guys on different things, and one thing that drives Ashley absolutely crazy about how I do stuff is I'm a butterfly. I get led down rabbit holes quite a lot. So he'll say, right, we need to look at this bit, and that's where I'll start. And then before the end of it, I'm coming up with stuff, and he's like, actually, that's not what we needed to find out about. We needed to find out about this first. And I'm like, yeah, but look what I found out about this. And he's like, yeah, but I need to know about that bit first. Do you know what I mean? And he, but that's your job. I think different bits of information. You organise it.
I think that can be the danger of looking at the information first. You could be led down the wrong path. You know, it could just be a story. You don't know.
No, that's true. But that's why sometimes it's good to have people working on a case with different approaches.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, like I say, I mean, I'm very, and I hate to say this word because it makes me sound very flutterby, but I'm probably more unfocused. So we'll look at different aspects. Like one night I'll go down, I'll go, right, okay, I want to have a look at this particular part of it, and that will lead me somewhere else. Yeah. And whereas Ashley will be like very logical and start at the beginning and move through, and start at like point blank, as it were, and logically move through. Whereas I'm sort of like, I'll flip from original to latest to middle to history to geology to water, to whatever it be that I'm looking, that floats my boat on that particular night. Otherwise I get bored. Yeah. Whereas Ashley is very logical. So to him, my approach is actually driving him a little bit crazy.
It's not driving bad at all, no.
In the corner. But that's why the two approaches are really good, because Ashley will be able to take the information I've got and go, okay, so we've got that part of it, but we need to build on that bit.
Yeah.
So as the case builds, it will highlight areas that haven't been looked into. Even though I've sort of like flicked in and out of different areas, it builds a case, whereas Ashley's very good at logically putting that together, which I'm crap at. I'm crap at that side of it. And I acknowledge that. But that's why sometimes working with a small select team who are focused on, work in different ways, helps build a better case file sometimes than one person. Because one person can overlook.
Take for example, the Right Gatehouse. Now, I've done a little bit of research because obviously it's now a Trident location. So I needed to put it all on the website and everything to try and sell it to other companies and stuff. So I've done basic research into that property. But, I mean, you guys might have done a little bit more. With any luck, you've probably done a lot more. But if I go there and I try and experiment and I get certain names and dates and stuff like that, I can then go to you guys and say, well, look, this is what I've got. Does it match with what you've researched?
I mean, that's one thing I've actually found is this part of it I'm finding absolutely crazy. This makes me crazy. Is the generic information that's copy and pasted, and then somebody will take something that's a copy and paste and then like expand it a little bit with no base fact behind it whatsoever. On the internet. So I'm like, you've got to get to your documentation. You've got to get verifiable facts, because you can't rely on what is actually out there on the internet so much. Because in one particular instance, I found 5 different accounts, and you could clearly see where the original source came from. Yeah. And then it had been elongated, that's not the right word, expanded and changed, details changed a little bit. And it was so frustrating. And I was like, no, the only way I'm going to be able to verify this is if I spend a day in an archive somewhere. Yep. And I found that side of it very frustrating. There's a lot of misinformation out there, guys.
There is.
Yeah. On the internet. Don't just rely on your internet. Do your research and do it properly. If you're going to do it, if you're going to do a case where you've got to do it. And if, like I said, so many conflicting pieces of information are out there on the internet. It's crazy.
It is.
It is. It's true. It's a funny thing as well. The old I mean, I'll put my hands up. In the past, I've probably done research from the internet and had the same problem where you pulled information. It's been like, hang on a minute. And the classic mistake, which I think not a lot of people know about out there, is the Wikipedia mistake. which is the fact that Wikipedia is a source of information that's put together. It's an open source piece of information, which means that everybody puts it together, which means it's not verified completely. And you can actually put what you like on there if you really wanted to. So
tempting.
It is, isn't it?
And in fact, a lot of famous people will add things on their, profiles for themselves on Wikipedia, but they'll put completely irrelevant things on there about themselves in order to find out whether people have done their research via Wikipedia or via proper sources.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is also an issue with a lot of people out there do their research and they'll pick things off of Wikipedia and go, oh, actually, that's not true. Or like you said, it's been copied and pasted from somewhere else and then expanded a little bit. And
Chinese whispers.
You get the Chinese whispers then, exactly that.
Yeah. I mean, I only ever use Wikipedia for a quick reference point. I do not, if I'm doing a case research, I've never used Wikipedia.
Yeah, I must admit, I go to websites as opposed to Wikipedia. I hate Wikipedia for that reason. It's just too hit and miss with the information.
But I was also talking to somebody a couple of weekends ago, and I found this absolutely incredible. This is somebody who is quite a big part of one of the well-known scientifically approaching paranormal groups. And he openly admitted that in some of the books that are out there, there's incorrect or not incorrect, made up stories. And I've heard this before. And I was like absolutely gobsmacked that happens. But apparently it's a well-known experiment within those circles. So again, don't just believe everything you read in books. Research it yourself.
No, that makes sense. And it's, I suppose it catches people out plagiarising.
Oh, completely it does.
Didn't map makers used to do that with ghost streets, I think they called it. And they put in certain imaginary streets to catch people using their work.
Yeah, they did. So it's it's a phenomena that does happen. So you do have to be really, really careful where you're getting your information from. Yeah. And that's something that's become incredibly apparent to me recently, and that's the amount of misinformation or inflated, information is crazy.
Yeah, I might make some bits up for my book on doppelgangers.
Of infamous doppelganger book.
Yeah, I might do that. Oh dear.
Oh my goodness.
And on that bombshell, we have come to the end of the show. You realise that? Time has flown.
As always on a Tuesday.
It does, doesn't it? It goes too far, too quick. Maybe I'll have to have a word with the management and get a 2-hour show, I think.
Oh dear, I don't know about that.
We'll see. We'll see what we can do. We'll do it by popular demand. We'll have a vote. Oh dear. Anyway, I'd like to thank Ashley for joining me tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And thank you, Kerry, for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
I know. And thanks everyone in the chat room. Hopefully you'll join us next week. What's the show about next week? Oh, we're talking about the Paraforce convention that we're going to at the weekend.
We are. Aftermath.
So, yeah, the aftermath of that. So, yeah, join us next week to find out what happened and what we got up to. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be an amazing weekend. We're being joined by Sean Cadman and Vivienne Powell, as well as Ashley next week.
If they've recovered.
If they've recovered, they will be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, yes, thank you, everyone, and join me next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello. Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are. to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?